Hey, what's up guys? Jimbo here, and man, have I got something special for you today. I brought along my very excellent friend here, EdgedWeapon88, who will be sitting across the table from me. This is a project that has been long in the works between the two of us. We originally conceived this idea back before the first force multiplier, actually, and we finally got around to it, to doing, I guess, the world's first true stereo knife review is what we're going to call this. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new for 2011 Kershaw Talon 2. Just for the record and to give you guys a little background here, Keelan and I actually purchased this knife at the exact same time and received it shipped on the exact same day and begun the carry of it on the exact same day and more or less carried it for about the same amount of time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're trying to be as scientific about this as we can to give you as balanced and at the same time as diverse of a review as we can, so you can get two more or less equal perspectives on the exact same knife, given that our approach to the review is more or less the same. You know, carried the same amount of time, got it at the same time, and are going to talk about the same talking points. All right, Keelan, let's talk about this. My first impressions of the Talon 2, right when I got it out of the box, was, holy crap, is that a funny looking handle. It's got kind of like this crescent moon kind of shape to it, which really threw me off when I first got it. How did it strike you?
I agree with you. The handle itself looks very uncomfortable, looks very odd, and it's not something you see typically in a folding knife. It just is an odd shaped handle. But that's very different when you actually get it in your hand, you actually start holding it and using it. It is extremely comfortable and extremely ergonomic.
I could not agree more. When I first saw the production pictures of this knife, the first thing that crossed my mind is there's no way in hell that could actually be comfortable in your hand. But when you actually hold this thing in your hand, it's kind of a freak of nature, but it just works. The way it kind of molds to your hand, the way the back end of the handle kind of sweeps up and it kind of rises up to meet the back of your palm right here, and it forces your hand forward, moving the fulcrum of the cutting angle closer toward the end of the blade.
Exactly.
As far as the blade shape is concerned, this is Kershaw. They call it the Talon, obviously, so they're considering this to be basically an eagle claw type of blade. In my opinion, this is not exactly an eagle claw, and it's not exactly a Wharncliffe. It's kind of a happy medium between the two. For the new people out there, younger folks who are newer to knives, just to clear things up, the definition basically of a Wharncliffe is the bottom half, the cutting edge, is basically perfectly flat, or at least very close to perfectly flat. As you can see, this is pretty curved, where it kind of tapers to the nose, where it bends down a little bit. So from here back, it's more or less a traditional Wharncliffe. If you look at it like that, it's pretty close to flat. But when you look at the front end of it, it bends downward more like an eagle beak. So, the name of it, the Talon definitely fits it. It does look like a bird's talon kind of leaning forward. It's really, really good for pull cuts and things like that. But at the same time, you get the real estate back here, giving you the dimensions of a Wharncliffe. But what did you think about it, Keelan?
It was something I wasn't exactly expecting. Like you said, it's a combination of a hawkbill design and a sheep's foot. You do have definitely more sheep's foot characteristics in there. You have that flat edge of the blade, and then you have that slight curve at the end. But it's an excellent cutter. It just eats through cardboard and paper, anything like that. Just outstanding. Absolutely love it.
Could not agree more. While we're talking about the blade here, another thing that I really like about it is how thin and tapered this is. I do not own one of these, folks, but the thinnest blade that I've seen to compare this to would be something like the Spyderco Centofonte 3. How it's got that really, really, really thin kind of blade, and the overall dimensions of it, really, because it's so thin and streamlined, and on top of the fact, you got the eagle beak at the front, really, like Keelan said, makes this a really, really good cutter. I mean, this thing is basically geometrically perfect for pull cuts. For tasks like opening boxes and breaking down cardboard boxes, the geometry of this is basically ideal, at least in my opinion.
Correct. The design behind the hawkbill and with this Talon 2, when you're cutting through a material, you have that curved portion of the blade in the front. And what happens when you pull it through the material, that material is constantly being pulled up into the blade, and you don't really have to have any downward force in order for that blade to catch it and cut through that you do with a typical drop point or anything that has any belly, where you're actually having to push the knife into it as opposed to the material actually coming into the blade itself.
Absolutely. How do you feel about the fact that they did not include a backspacer?
To be honest, I actually like that. It's a flow-through design. It's very easy to clean. It definitely cuts down some of the weight. The two pillars in the back here add enough structural support that the knife isn't compromised. And in my opinion, it's not really necessary.
I could not agree more. That is something that I'll admit, it struck me as a little bit unusual when I first got it. It says, I don't think I own a Kershaw knife of these types of dimensions that does not have at least some type of backspacer. But like Keelan said, I mean, look how open this thing is. I mean, you can get a Q-tip in there, no problem, to the point where you almost wouldn't have to take apart the handle scales because it's so wide. And the two pillars in the back, again, that kind of threw me off a little. It's a very unorthodox design. Typically with Kershaws of this type, you've got at least one extra pillar, or they space the pillars out a little bit. But in this one, they put all the weight at the end of the knife to help give it a little bit more balance, basically just removing any need for a backspacer. I mean, the way it is right now and the way it holds in your hand, the balance on the knife is very, very, very good. And I think Kershaw was absolutely on point for omitting the backspacer on this one.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get on to the pocket clip on this one. Both you and I have made criticisms about this particular pocket clip. It's the same as it's on the new Oh So Sweet. This is on a few other models if I remember. A lot of the newer Kershaws have this same design.
Correct.
On most Kershaw knives, I don't think that this pocket clip really works. However, on this particular one, I don't mind it as much. It's still not my favorite pocket clip design, I'm not going to lie. If you look at the knives that Kershaw has coming out later in 2011, they've kind of heeded the cries of their constituents and gone for the more deep carry stuff. So I'm really excited to get my hands on those later this year. But all things considered, because this knife is so thin, because the handle is not wide, it's not a huge beefy knife, it would not lend itself well, in my opinion, to a larger pocket clip. So for all intents and purposes, while again this is not the ideal pocket clip by, at least in my opinion, by any stretch of the imagination, I think of all the Kershaw knives I own that has this pocket clip, and I think I have 3 or 4, this I think works the closest to ideal with this particular platform.
Okay.
How do you feel about it?
I differ slightly. Although I don't dislike the pocket clip on the Talon here, I'm not a big fan of it all around. It is on Oh So Sweet and a couple of Kershaws, and I think it works better in those platforms. If Kershaw had included a pocket clip that you have similar to one on the Chive or the Leak, where it's still thin but it's more straight and is going to center itself on the knife instead of kind of getting off to the side here, I think that would be a little bit better. At least when I put it in my pocket clip, it's kind of always canted or angled one way or the other, just because of the way the pocket clip is designed.
I couldn't agree more, and that's a really good point. This does kind of lean the thing off, sort of off kilter when you carry it in your pocket, just basically the way the pocket clip is designed, because it comes down to an angle here. The one last point I do want to make about the pocket clip is when the knife is actually in your pocket, and I'll show you that in the carry view section of this review, I do like how unassuming it looks to the casual person, because it does not look like the traditional knife clip. It almost looks like a pen clip.
Exactly.
You know, not quite as much as the awesome spider wire clip, which we're both big fans of, but not too far off the mark. You know, it's very inconspicuous, very unassuming, which I definitely have to give it a plus on that. For the record, folks, the Kershaw's got the righties covered on this. It's tip up or tip down. You lefties, they did give you something. They did give you tip up only, but unfortunately did not give you the tip down option. But better than nothing. You know, Kershaw's really come a long way in that, as far as them kind of, I don't want to say snubbing lefties, but, you know, just kind of leaving them out of the fold. You know, they've come along and a little bit and at least included something for the left-handed people. So bravo on that one, Kershaw.
Okay, now take a look at the handle on the Kershaw Talon. First off, the G10 texturing. Kershaw really hit the nail on the head with this texturing. It's not overly aggressive. It's quite smooth, but it does give you sufficient amount of traction in your hand when you're using it. Also, the ergonomics of the handle, like I said previously, it does not look very comfortable and it does not look very ergonomic. But with the design, the way it's meant to be used in a pulling fashion when you're actually like ripping through a cardboard box, it really allows it to sink back in your hand, get a good solid grip on it, and complete the task. Also, several other different grips, whether it be reverse or so forth, it's extremely comfortable. What do you think?
I could not agree more. As I've stated many times in several of my videos, like for example when I did my favorite knives of 2010, I mentioned the Spyderco Persistence as being what I consider to be ideal G10 for texturing, like the happy medium between grip and slip. You know, something that feels good in your hand. You know, you've got decent traction on it, but at the same time, it's not tearing up your pockets because, you know, we all hate that. I agree with Keelan on this, that Kershaw really hit the nail on the head, and they got the texturing of this pretty damn close to perfect. It's, you know, it feels great in your hand. It does not feel like it's going to slip, but at the same time, it's smooth enough to the point where it does not eat your pockets. So, bravo on that one, Kershaw. I think this should be your standard for comparison for what your customers want for G10, at least in my opinion.
Now take a look at the flipper. You have two methods of deployment Kershaw really offers you, the thumb stud and the flipper. However, in my opinion, the thumb stud is completely pointless. There's no way to actually get that out. It is so far recessed close to the handle that you don't have enough leverage, and it's pointless.
Yeah.
It is a blade stop. There are some grooves at the top of the handle here that can be used when the blade is open to help lock the blade in place. The flipper comes out nice and fast, not a problem. Very simply, you have to put very little effort into actually deploying the knife itself. There is a slight amount of jimping on the flipper, which does help to give you some traction, but in all honesty, I don't really even notice that it's there.
Could not agree more. There's just something about a speed-safe flipper knife that I will always like. Some of my Kershaw knives that I reviewed, like for example the Kershaw Clash, it's, as I mentioned at the end of that video, just there's something about a speed-safe flipper knife that I will always enjoy. It's probably, bar none, my favorite deployment system as far as just overall ease of use. The flipper, by definition, is ambidextrous. You know, it doesn't need opposing thumb studs. It doesn't need anything like that. Anybody can use this because it's right in the middle of the knife. And you couple that with Speed Safe, which is still my favorite assisted opening system. I mean, it's just buttery smooth. Every time you open it, just absolutely effortless. It's as easy as snapping your fingers. So on this one, Kershaw definitely did not disappoint. I'm kind of glad that they made the thumb studs more or less glorified blade stops. In my opinion, Kershaw really has trouble every time they do a thumb stud assisted opening knife. They seem to, Speed Safe in and of itself seems to lend itself a little bit better to flippers than it does to thumb studs.
Absolutely agree.
So, one piece of information I do want to mention, when Keelan and I were throwing around the idea of doing the dual knife review, this was actually not our first choice. We both actually got the Kershaw Random Task 2. Some of you may remember the Random Task 1 was designed by Ken Onion. It was actually the very first Onion Speed Safe knife. We got that one, and I'll be honest with you, that's not really a knife that I don't think either of us could recommend. It did not have a flipper. It was thumb stud only, and it just basically ate up your thumb anytime you tried to open it. I mean, it just was not comfortable or easy to deploy, or any of the hallmarks that Kershaw is known for when they put together a speed safe knife of this quality. So just a little FYI on that one. That's definitely not one you're going to see me reviewing anytime soon.
Absolutely agree. The Random Task was definitely uncomfortable. It was another ramped thumb stud from Kershaw, which in my opinion the only one that actually did right was the Kershaw Blur. And when you compare these two, this one looks uncomfortable but is comfortable, and the Random Task is uncomfortable even though it does look comfortable. So all around, I would definitely recommend this over that Random Task.
Absolutely. All right, what do you think about the weight on this? It's coming in at 3.2 ounces, which is, I'd call that right about on par given the dimensions of the knife, like not overly heavy but not exactly light.
For this size knife, for me, I think that's perfect. It's right in the sweet spot. You are getting a little bit of that weight because of the full stainless steel liners. But overall, I mean, the G10 isn't overly thick. The blade is relatively, it's in the same category as other knives this size. So the weight for me is right on par. Could
not agree more. Okay, another point I wanted to make was the blade centering on ours seems to be a little bit different. Well, I'll show you mine here real quick. See if I can get my camera to cooperate. Okay, as you can see right there, the blade centering on mine is just a little bit off to the right. It's not exactly center. It's just a few degrees off to my right-hand side. But when you look at Keelan's, his is basically dead center. So there's going to be differences when it comes to factory anomalies and stuff like that. Just for the record, I have tried tightening the pivot screw all the way down to the point where you can't even deploy this thing, and it doesn't seem to matter. Again, it's not a big deal. This is like a high 50s, low $60 knife, and it is pretty darn close to center. That's definitely within acceptable range, in my opinion. I guess Keelan just lucked out on this one, and I didn't, but that's fine. I do not feel that is a large enough problem to make me return it to Kershaw.
Oh, and I would have to agree. The only downside, I think, is you're paying a little bit more of a premium price for this, and this is U.S. made. So I would hope that, it may just be one of 100 that, didn't quite get the same treatment as the rest of the ones in the line. But with a USA made knife and the price you're paying, I would hope that it would be a little bit more consistent.
Absolutely. Okay, one additional point that I wanted to make about my particular knife when I got this with respect to the pocket clip. I actually originally had to rebend this thing because the pocket clip, the tension on it was just too much. It would go into my pocket just fine, but pulling it out required a little bit too much effort for it to be comfortable for me. So I did take it apart and did, kind of put a little elbow grease into it and rebend it. Did you have any issues with yours when you got it?
I did not. Mine was pretty decent from the factory, and through use it kind of loosened itself up, so there wasn't much adjustment on my side. But I guess I got lucky with both blade centering and the tension on the pocket clip.
I guess so. All right, we'll go ahead and give you guys the specifications on this, even though you can look this up on Kershaw's website. But, I always like to throw this into my reviews for the lazy folks out there who don't want to do that. Okay, close length on this guy comes in at 4 inches. Blade length comes in at 2 7/8 inches, giving it an overall length of 6 7/8 inches. The weight on it, as we mentioned, was 3.2 ounces. The blade steel is 14C28N Sandvik. The blade style, as I'd mentioned earlier, they call it a hawkbill style blade. I don't entirely agree with that. And the reason I don't is I brought 2 examples to give you a little perspective on why I feel that this is kind of the happy medium between the two. All right, as previously reviewed by me, we've got the Ladybug Salt here. This, in my opinion, is the archetypal hawkbill, meaning the slope on the front of the blade comes perfectly down, exactly like the talons on a hawk or a bird of prey. And then we've got the Kershaw Centofonte, which, again, in my opinion, is the archetypal Warncliffe style blade, meaning the bottom of the blade is perfectly flat. And you've got the tip here that it kind of looks like it's facing down, but it's really not. The tip basically is perfectly parallel. So when you compare those to this, as you can see, the talon is not exactly flat like the Warncliffe, and it's not exactly sloping like the hawkbill ladybug here. It's kind of the happy marriage between the two of them, which, don't get me wrong, that's not a criticism. In my opinion, that's actually a good thing, because you're kind of getting, at least what I feel, is the best compromise between the two, because you've got the flatness back here of the Centofonte, of the Warncliffe style blade, but you've also got the sloping nose like you do on the Ladybug Salt. So you've got pull cuts, and at the same time, when the cut works itself all the way to the back of the blade, you got that nice kind of smooth section to help you finish out the cut. So excellent job on that one, Kershaw. All right, let's get into some size comparisons on this one. Got a few different ones this time. Give you a small guy, a little bro here, Kershaw Centofonte. And a bigger bro, Kershaw Clash. And just for my buddy, Apophysis 7, got the carbon fiber S90V Paramilitary 2 on top, and the cold steel Raja 3. Alright, let's show you guys the carry view here. Now, as you can see, you've really only got the tail end of the knife sticking out on this. It is relatively low profile. Not quite on point with the spider wire clip from Spyderco, where that sits really, really low in your pocket. But for a Kershaw, that's actually not that bad. They've definitely come a long way with their pocket clips, and this is a step in the right direction as far as the ride height is concerned. One minor gripe I do have to give about it, while it is easy to get it out of your pocket, I almost always have to use two hands to get it back in, basically just because of the tension on the pocket clip itself. It is a little tight. Seems to come out okay, but when it comes to putting it back on, it's just, you got to put a little bit more effort in it than I normally like to have on my knives. But all things considered, definitely acceptable, and decent job on that one, Kershaw. All right, Keelan's going to show it on his person here. Go ahead, dude.
All right, so when I put mine in, since the pocket clip is not tight, but it's a little bit tighter than I'm used to, I start at the top and then push down. Most of the time, as you can see, it's kind of angling outward, so I like to pull it up and have it ride a little bit higher so it doesn't kind of cant to the side. That's pretty much it. Really easy to get back out and actually use if you need to.
Okay, live, love, try. Hillary is going to step up and show us how she carries the knife and give us her 2 cents on it, so by all means, go ahead.
Alright, I'm going to just show you on my right side because it's set up that way and it's pretty much the same either side, but I have to, because my pockets in these shorts are a little ripped up from all the knives, so I start high like Keelan does, and then I press it into my pocket and then scoot it down. It seems to stick out a little bit from this pocket, but it's not as bad as other knives that I've had. So.
Alright guys, we're going to do a little cut test here. Just for the record, this is the factory edge. I have not resharpened this, and I have carried this extensively for over a month consistently, so we'll see how it does. We're going to do some pull cuts on this thing, because like I mentioned earlier, that's really what this thing was designed for. Look how simple that is. Just absolutely easy, and I'm only having to use the tip of the blade for this, and it's just going right through it. This kind of cutting is what this knife was designed for, and in that particular capacity, it excels. I mean, look at that, dude. Swiss cheese. Not bad. So, in conclusion, I think the Kershaw Talon 2 is absolutely one of Kershaw's best efforts thus far in 2011. I have never held the Kershaw Talon 1 in my hands, but from what I've heard, it's a great knife, and I hope to have one in my collection one day, just for pure collecting purposes. But for what you're getting here, for right in the high $50, low $60 range, shipped give or take, that's about the average eBay price. Same big blade steel, nice, perfectly, in my opinion, textured G10 handle, tip down, tip up for righties, and at least tip up for lefties. This nice kind of Wharncliffe hawkbill blade. I really think that this is one of the better $50+ knives that I own. It's definitely one of my favorite Kershaws.
Absolutely, Kershaw really did a great job. Very value-centered knife, but at the same time bringing you outstanding materials, blade steel, G10, just all-around great knife and outstanding cutter. One of my favorite knives for simple utility tasks. Just outstanding job, Kershaw.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much to EdgedWeapon88 for joining me on this review and being part of this project. This has been long in the works, guys, but I hope it's been worth the wait, and I really hope that you've enjoyed this. I want to thank everyone so much for their time and taking the time to watch this video. I hope that we have given you as equal and at the same time as diverse of a review that two people on YouTube can give you. For all the best knives, gear, flashlights, you name it, go ahead and check out www.whitemountainKnives.com. Use discount code MJF to get 10% off your order, and it is free shipping inside the continental United States. Again, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay fit, stay strong.
Stay supreme.
Thank you. Take care, guys. You gotta bring it up. You gotta be like a delivery.
I'm a model, you know what I mean, and I do my little turn.
So, there we go. Okay. So, in conclusion, that was so cheesy. Oh my god. So, in conclusion.